fundamental elements of jiu-jitsu today fall back on. The reason they work is because they don't require anything. You can hunt for them. And if you do them successfully, the leverage and the mathematical equation is in your favor. So the fundamental elements. I'd like to show you 2 positions from 3 areas. 2 positions from escape from the mount. I'd like to show you 2 guard openings, one standing, one seated. And I'd like to show you an attack series from the closed guard. Now, nothing I'm going to show you today, if you looked at it on video, you have seen it all before. But a lot of those eureka moments in my jiu-jitsu career came from a missing element that either made you put it in your game or discard it. And you heard the age-old adage, sometimes the 10% you're missing makes 100% of the difference. Hopefully I'm going to show you that 10% in all 6 of these positions. But keep in mind, if you watched it on videotape, you go, I've seen that before, I know it. And I hope that you have seen it all before. But in a lot of instances, I know in my career, sometimes I went to purple belt. And a lot of these little fundamental elements, I didn't know. And the reason the fundamentals are kind of lost today is, I dare to say, they're not being taught properly. So if one of the elements of the fundamental position is taught incorrectly, or if you don't know it well, you'll discard it, and you should. If you try something repeatedly and you don't have success with it, you're going to put it out of the equation. You're going to get rid of it. But if you learn all of those infinitesimal elements that make it successful, you will have 0 need for the flash and dash. 0 need. There's a reason some of the greats, Hodger, his whole game is pass them out, cross-stroke cross. Hickson's sole philosophy is, if I take you down, my sole objective is to pass and mount. By mount, that means the top or the back mount. If I get taken down, my sole objective is to procure the closed guard. It's not to deep half guard and sweep and then try darce from the bottom half. It's to procure the closed guard. These are all mathematical equations. There's always a right thing to do and a wrong thing to do. Now, just because you see somebody that has full back control leave back control and dive on a knee bar and hit it, doesn't mean it's the right thing to do. Just because you can sprint across a firing range and not get killed, doesn't mean it's the right thing to do. So you can watch some of these tournaments and the flash guys, and you can see some wacky stuff that they succeed with. But you have to know what's okay to do and what's not. Jiu-jitsu is always a very rational decision martial art. You want to wait to put your energy into something until you're at the end of the seesaw. It's the difference most of the time between a black belt and a white belt is a lot of time a white belt presses right near the fulcrum. Not a lot of leverage. They use a lot of strength to get something. A black belt, more often than not, gets right at the end of the seesaw. So if you roll it up, it's really, really strong. It's not that he's strong. He's pressing your arm down here. You're pressing down here. A lot of resistance. The better you get, the more everything you reach for is on the end of the seesaw. The improper analogy is this. You know, when you've lived in your house for 10 years, you wake up and it's pitch black out, and you walk and you can feel, you can't go to the bathroom, my feet are on carpet, as soon as it goes to the tile, okay, it should be about, boom, and you hit the light switch. It's a 2mm light switch. You don't even look at it. Your feet are telling you carpet, carpet, tile, boom, and you hit the light switch. That's black belt familiarity. When you sleep at a friend's house or in a hotel room, you do this. Click, that's white belt. There's no difference. You're still traveling the same amount of distance and hitting the same side of the switch. That's what being a black belt is. It's that level of efficiency. You've heard people talk about old man strength when you shake your granddad's hand. He didn't have any extra muscle, but he's done this right on the knuckles for 80 years. So he's on the knuckles. He's not on the fingers, and he's not up wide with the breadth of your hand. He's on the knuckles, and it feels overpowering. He's done it so many times. He has such an economy of movement, and he hits that leverage position perfectly. That's what makes it feel strong. These are the elements we're going to go over today. A couple of the principles that I'd like to address are not necessarily the positions that we're going to go over, but I'd like you guys to leave here with more of a concept. Because if you understand the concept, the positions can vary. Whether you use a gable, a butterfly modified gable, a C, plant, any of these grips, some of the positions can work with any variation. But if you understand the concept, these concepts translate to any position in jiu-jitsu. So that's what I'd like you to take from today. It's not going to be anything surprising. We're not going to do a flying chimichanga from Lunar Module or any of those wacky names. Crack, smacker, whatever they call it. We're going to do fundamental jiu-jitsu. But I hope in every one of these positions, you're going to see something that goes, I get it. That's why it never worked. That's why instead of, use your hammer. That's why, okay, from my half guard, normally I don't know the fundamentals, so what I do is I do the chimichanga. There's a lot of elements like that sure, you could pull off. But really, your highest probability is you prepare a closed guard. It's your highest probability. That's the shortest point between A and B, where you risk the least amount and you stand to gain the most amount. The whole idea of our jiu-jitsu is not just to submit my opponent, but it becomes to submit my opponent while using the least amount of energy and effort. I want to do it with maximum efficiency. If I have to struggle and do everything and I finish it and I'm gassed, I need to improve my game. So even whenever you start finishing something, not only do you want to finish it quicker, but you want to risk less and less every time and finish them while expending the least amount of energy. A lot of positions, for example, the guillotine is an entire body submission. So part of being an upper belt, knowing jiu-jitsu, is knowing when you have this grip. It's knowing when to push your chips into the center of the table and say, okay, now I'm risking it all. Because if you do, you watch plenty of UFC, somebody will latch on their guillotine and squeeze. Ah, the guy's head popped out, fight's over. The guy who was squeezing the guillotine's done. He's put all his chips in, he didn't have the correct grip, and the fight's over. So part of it is knowing when to apply pressure and when not to apply pressure. The fundamental jiu-jitsu game is always about leverage, positional dominance, and if somebody's on the bottom, they need to pay for it. One of the concepts I'd like to address today is position. You always want the opponent on the bottom to carry your weight, while at the same time not be so connected that when they move, they dictate your movement. One of the beautiful things about the mount is I want my opponent to feel my mount very heavy, but not relaxed so much that when they bridge, I fly through the ceiling. And that's a very delicate balance. Everybody that walks in here, who, out of a mount and side control, raise your hand if you prefer side control. Three. And I'll tell you this, and that's a small percentage. That's a tiny percentage of the class. 9 out of 10, you're going to get about half the class, or most academies. That's wonderful to see that it's so small. I'll tell you this, your first day in jiu-jitsu, what you come equipped with off the street, your side control out of a 1 to 10, 10 being amazing, off the street, off the corner, no jiu-jitsu, is about a 4. Your instincts put it at about a 4. Squeeze, hold the guy, it's about a 4. If you drill it for 10 years, it will only ever get up to about a 6. Only. The minute you walk in off the street, your mount is about a 0.5. Horrible. Horrible. But if you drill that for 10 years, it's a 10. It's a 10. If I mount hammer, he's probably not going to get out. But if I have him in side control, if I don't advance the mount, he's going to eventually get out. Same thing, if he mounts me, it's probably game over. But if he has me in side control, unless he mounts, I'm probably eventually going to get out. When you reach that level of jiu-jitsu, you understand those positions. So what does that mean? That means when you come in off the street for your rolling, drill what you're not good at. Get it better. Have faith in the positions that your professor tells you are valuable positions. I know you want to leave here with some success. You're like, I'm going to stay in side control with this guy. Try to mount. The only way your mount's going to get better is if you try it. And you're going to have to accept a lot of failure to get good. But the mount will become a 10. You will laugh at side control in 5 years. The mount's that good. The mount is a 10-meter head start on a 100-meter sprint. You can't make it up. Usain Bolt could give you 10 meters. Oh, he made it okay. Yeah, pretty fast, but most people, you give them 10 meters and 100 meters, you're not going to see them. Side control, you have about 2 feet in head start. It's a transitional position. If you're not mounting, you're waiting to get collected in close guard. So the first thing let's do, let's just warm up with some brief movements that are going to be a part of all these positions that we're going to go over today. So I'm going to do an extensive warm-up. We're going to do brief movements. The first thing we're going to start off with is a bridge. First thing I want everybody to do is I want everybody to warm up the bridge correctly. We're going to do 2 minutes of bridging. I just want everybody to go side to side. Elements of the bridge are this. I want my heels as close to my butt as possible. If you're flexible, your pelvis is going to come off the ground immediately. If not, spider walk, your ball heel to ball heel until your pelvis comes off the ground. I want you to be on your toes. Your heels are off the ground, very close to your butt. Elbows are at my hips. When I bridge, I'm bridging straight over my head until 2 things almost happen. My chin almost hits my sternum, my head almost hits the mat. 2 things almost happen. All the way back till my chin almost hits my sternum, my head almost hits the mat. At that point, I'm bringing an ear to a deltoid. And I'm continuing straight over my head. All the way back again, and bridging the other side. Until 2 things almost happen, chin almost hits the sternum, head almost hits the mat, ear to a deltoid, and again, straight over my head. Not to the side, straight over my head. Here's the concept. First thing to note in my mountain skate, when he traps a leg, it's a myth that this traps a leg. As soon as he bridges and his butt comes away from his heel, comes out. So this doesn't really trap a leg. It buys you a quick little moment, which is good. You need this. You do trap a leg, but it's not permanent. If I have a grip on my opponent's collar here, if he traps this arm, that's permanent. It's permanent. So really, this is all you can count on. Now for our mouse skate, everybody knows the buckle roll of the mouse skate? Anybody raise your hand if you haven't seen it? Beautiful. Okay, so from here, if I'm in this position, Hammer traps my arm, and he traps my leg. He can trap this leg momentarily, but as soon as his butt comes away from his heel, there's going to be a time where I can post out here. So what does that tell us? You can only count on this. An incorrect bridge, which 95% of the people, even upper belts, they bridge here, and here, and here, and here. Correct? Most people bridge like this. You've seen it 1,000 times. This. The problem with this, and this is one of those elements that I was a purple belt before I really learned. What I need to do is I need to bridge my opponent in multiple directions. If Hammer, even without me, if he bridges in one direction, what I do bridge? I base out until he goes back. I base out until he goes back. If he bridges correctly, this is what happens to my base. My base goes directly over his head. He starts to turn the corner here, and that all happens in about 1/10 of a second. Impossible for me to base out and defend this if it's executed correctly. If it's incorrect, my hand goes out, and I wait till he gives it, and I come right back. Hand goes out, it comes right back. Now, with my hand trapped, I can't base with my hand, but the same thing happens with my leg. If it's straight over my head, leg doesn't work. The leg only comes into effect when he starts to turn the corner, and then it's only useful for one direction. If he keeps turning, I'm going to get reversed top to bottom. Does everybody understand that concept? So my bridge is this. Elbows to my hips, my heel to my butt, so my pelvis comes off the ground, I'm on my toes. Bridge straight over my head till my chin hits my sternum, or my head is about to hit the mat. Then ear to the deltoid, and I continue on. Watch what happens to my chest here. It goes from this all the way to this. From here, all the way to sideways. This is the corner that you're turning. From here to here. So my opponent's here, then they have to take down here, all the way over here, in about 1/10 of a second. This is what makes the mountain skate work. So let's warm up with this perfect bridge. I know this seems completely elemental in jiu-jitsu and fundamental, but I was a purple belt and I did this correctly. I can't tell you how many times I thought the roll from out doesn't work. This hip skate, look at this. Heel hook, escape. Trust me, this works, and this is the foundation for your mountain skate. The first thing that you do when you're mounted is you bridge. Why? It's the only thing you can do where you know absolutely what your opponent's going to do. He's going to base out. You know absolutely what he's going to do. Another concept to think about the bridge and the hips and mount. If I have one hand deep in the collar, here, what are Hammer's defenses to keep from getting choked? I want everybody to think about this. This is martial arts at its finest. What does he do to prevent this? I'm going to choke him. I'm going to choke. Anybody know? Raise your hand. Here. I'm going to choke him. Definitive. I'm going to choke him. I'm going to choke him. Exactly. What happens? What do I need to finish my attack? I need this hand. Reverse engineer. Don't think, well, I'm going to grab that hand. Think, what can I do with my body to make him apply this defense tool to something other than defending the choke? If his hips come off the ground, I can't choke, can I? Unless I accept the fact that I'm going to go top to bottom, right? Correct? This is the way you need to start thinking about martial arts. You don't want to. I don't want to fight Pat arm to arm. I need to stack the deck in my favor before I start applying pressure. If I'm mounted and I have one hand in and his back's flat on the ground, he's going to go to sleep. Unless I have horrible technique. He can put his hand in, I'm not choking. Right through his hand, I'm not choking. Hodge same thing. If his hips come off the ground and they stay off the ground, I have a dilemma. I can do two things, but neither one of them are okay. I can choke, but I'm going to be on the bottom. I better finish it. Or I can wait here and see what he does. But I cannot finish this choke, right? This is the concept. There's going to be one of these elements in every one of the positions we're going to look at. So right now, for 2 minutes, very quickly, let's warm up with breathing. Straight over our head until two things almost happen. Chin almost hits the sternum, head almost hits the mat. Bring the ear to the deltoid and continue on straight over your head. I want your pelvis to be the highest point on your body.
It's like exercises.